I am the wife of Cruz Gu, a top-tier surgeon. His first love, Lacey Lynn, whom he cherishes deeply, has been diagnosed with leukemia, and I am the only fully matched bone marrow donor in the world. I donated my bone marrow to her, and at my weakest moment, a sudden fire broke out in the hospital. He gave the only chance to escape to her, pushing me to the ground and leaving me to be engulfed by the thick smoke. He said, "Nori Shin, you are a doctor, you know how to save yourself." He didn't know that I had been reborn with the memory of that great fire. When he knelt before me again, begging me to save his beloved Lacey Lynn, I laughed. "You want me to save her? Sure, Cruz Gu, jump from here, and I'll donate." Won the merciless fire. The ceiling chandelier was shaking violently, charred fragments falling like black snowflakes. The thick smoke choked me, making it impossible to breathe. Every inhalation felt like swallowing shards of glass. I had just donated bone marrow and was so weak I didn't even have the strength to sit up. The door of the ward was blocked by a collapsed beam, and the only way out was the window that had been smashed open. My husband, Cruz Gu, was handing the only escape rope to his first love, Lacey Lynn. Lacey Lynn was just frightened. She huddled in Cruz Gu's arms, crying pitifully. "Cruz, I'm scared. Don't be afraid. Lacey, you go first." Cruz Gu's voice was a tenderness I had never heard before. As he carefully helped her tie the rope around her waist, I lay on the ground, reaching out my hand, calling out to him weakly, "Cruz Gu, save me." He glanced back at me, his eyes devoid of any warmth. He walked to my bedside, unplugged the portable ventilator that should have been mine, and shoved it into Lacey Lynn's hands. "Take this, there's heavy smoke outside." Then, he crouched down and harshly pushed away the hand I had extended toward him. I was thrown back by his push, hitting the bedpost. And my head struck the cold metal, ringing with a dull ache. His icy voice, like a blade of ice, pierced straight into my heart. "Nori Shin, you're a doctor. You know how to survive in heavy smoke. Lacey has just finished her transplant preparation. She can't afford any mishaps." It turns out that in front of her, even my name has become so unfamiliar. He no longer looked at me, hoisted Lacey Lynn onto his back, and without hesitation began climbing down along the wall. I lay on the ground, watching his figure disappear outside the window in despair. The thick smoke grew heavier, and flames licked through the door crack, igniting the bedsheet. The scorching air seared my skin, and I could almost smell the stench of my own flesh burning. He knew all too well. I had been afraid of fire since childhood. Because my parents died in a fire. I was only 8 years old that year, and as I was carried out of the fire by a firefighter, I watched the house they were in being engulfed by flames. From that day on, I developed severe post-traumatic stress disorder, experiencing difficulty breathing at the smell of smoke and trembling all over at the sight of flames. I have only ever told this to Cruz Gu. I held his hand, trembling, and said, "Cruz Gu, if there's ever a fire, you must save me first. I'm really scared." How did he respond at the time? He held me in his arms, gently patting my back, and said, "Silly, of course I'll save you first. You're my wife." But now, he pushed me into my deepest fear with his own hands. In the last moment of blurred consciousness, I seemed to see again the flames from when I was 8 years old, and the desperate faces of my parents. So, this is what death feels like, cold, yet scorching. "Dr. Shun, wake up." The nurse's voice pulled me back from the boundless darkness. I suddenly opened my eyes, gasping for breath, my entire body drenched in cold sweat, bright lights, white walls, and the familiar smell of disinfectant in the air. It wasn't the fire scene, it was my office. I looked down at my hands, pale, strong, without a single trace of burns. The calendar on the wall clearly showed the date, September 12th, 2023. I came back to the day when Lacey Lynn was diagnosed with leukemia, and Cruz Gu came to ask me to be a bone marrow match. Am I not dead? I died in that fire, on the day after my 28th birthday. It turns out that even the heavens thought I died too unjustly and gave me a chance to start over. The office door was pushed open, and my best friend and colleague, Zhongqi, walked in with a cup of coffee. "Dr. Shun, what nightmare did you have that scared you so pale?" She placed the coffee on my desk and looked at me with concern. I looked at her familiar face, my eyes welling up, almost on the verge of tears. I shook my head and forced a smile. "It's nothing, I'm just a bit tired." "Tired is right," Zhongqi pouted. "That Mr. GU of yours is blocking you downstairs again, parked in that flashy Maybach. Anyone would think is here to propose. I picked up the coffee, took a sip, and the bitter taste spread across the tip of my tongue. Cruz GU, just uttering this name makes me feel sick. How blind was I in my past life to have fallen in love with such a man? I put down my coffee cup and stood up. Let's go, I'll go meet him. 2 Reborn, downstairs at the hospital. Cruz GU's black Maybach was indeed parked in the most conspicuous spot. He was leaning against the car door, wearing an expensive custom-made suit, with the Patek Philippe I gave him on his wrist. Handsome, wealthy, and deeply affectionate. This is how outsiders see Cruz GU. Only I know that beneath this perfect exterior lies a heart so selfish and cold. Seeing me come out, he immediately put out the cigarette in his hand and quickly walked toward me. Nori, you're finally off work. He habitually reached out to take my hand. I subtly stepped back, avoiding his touch. His hand froze mid-air, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. What's wrong? Nothing. I just finished surgery and haven't taken off my gloves yet. I made up an excuse and slipped my hands into the pockets of my white coat. He didn't doubt, but his brow was slightly furrowed, and there was a hint of hesitation in his eyes. A familiar look that meant he was about to ask for a favor. Nori, there's something I want to talk to you about. Let's talk in the car. I pulled open the car door and got in directly. In my previous life, it was right here that he told me about Lacey Lynn in a tone that was almost pleading. He said that Lacey Lynn was his high school classmate, his unattainable first love from his youth. He said that their relationship was completely innocent, just that of ordinary friends. He said that she has leukemia and is very pitiful. And the doctor said that matching with relatives has the highest success rate. He held my hand, his eyes red, and said, Nori, I know this request is excessive, but her parents are old and in poor health, so I'm the only one she has. Could you please just help me by going to the hospital for a matching test, okay? At that moment, I was moved by his deeply affectionate and sincere demeanor. I thought that a man who could be so devoted to a friend from his youth must be a good person with strong emotional ties. I foolishly agreed to his request. The absurd part is that I didn't find out until just before my death that Lacey Lynn was never his high school classmate. She was his first love from college, a relationship that lasted 4 years. She was the one whose name he called out all night while drunk, holding on to me. The atmosphere in the car was somewhat heavy. Cruz GU gripped the steering wheel, hesitating several times to speak. I'm too lazy to watch him act any longer, so I spoke directly. Just say what you want to say, about Lacey Lynn. He jolted in surprise, looking at me in astonishment. How did you know? I curled the corner of my mouth, revealing a hint of a mocking smile. Guess. His expression shifted, as if he was weighing something. Finally, he sighed and confessed. Nori, Lacey. She has acute lymphoblastic leukemia and needs a bone marrow transplant as soon as possible. He carefully observed my expression, lowering his voice even further. The doctor said the probability of a fully matched donor from an unrelated person is extremely low, almost zero. I was thinking. I wanted to ask you, let me go and get a match for her. I picked up his words, my tone as calm as if we were discussing the weather. Cruz GU was stunned. He probably didn't expect me to say it so easily. Without a trace of jealousy or dissatisfaction, this, in turn, made him somewhat uneasy. Nori, don't misunderstand, there's really nothing between us, it's just that she's in a critical condition, and I can't stand by and watch her die, he explained urgently. Is that so? I gazed at the receding street scenes outside the window and asked calmly, she was your first love, the one you dated for 4 years, who dumped you to go abroad. Screech, a sharp sound of brakes. And the Maybach abruptly pulled over to the side of the road. Cruz GU's face instantly drained of all color. The truth begins to emerge. He stared at me intently, his eyes filled with shock and disbelief. How did you know? His voice was trembling. I have been married to Cruz GU for 3 years. And he has never mentioned Lacey Lynn to me on his own. I only learned about his unforgettable first love from the drunken words of his friend. He always thought I knew nothing about it. I turned my head, met his gaze, and said word by word, Cruz GU, do you think I'm particularly foolish? He opened his mouth, but couldn't utter a single word. The carriage was deathly silent. Looking at his pale face, I suddenly felt it was all pointless. Arguing with a man like this was simply a waste of my precious second chance at life. Alright, enough with that, look like your parents just died, I said, unbuckling my seatbelt. I'll agree to the matching test. Cruz GU seemed not to have heard me clearly. Staring at me blankly, what did you say? I said, I agree to do the matching test, I repeated, pushing the car door open. I'll go to the hospital tomorrow morning. Now, I'm getting out. Only then did he react, hurriedly grabbing my wrist. Nori, don't be angry, I didn't mean to hide it from you. I was just afraid you'd overthink it. Overthink? I sounded as if I'd heard the biggest joke. Cruz GU, do you really think I'm in the mood to fuss over these trivial romantic matters right now? I shook off his hand and got out of the car. Tomorrow at 9 in the morning, I'll be waiting for you in the hospital's blood draw room. With that, I walked away without looking back, leaving Cruz GU alone in the car, his expression shifting between gloom and uncertainty. He probably couldn't figure out why I had agreed so easily. In my previous life, when I heard him ask me to donate bone marrow to another woman, although I eventually softened and agreed. I had a big argument with him beforehand, but in this life, I am as calm as an outsider, because I clearly know that I am Lacey Lynn's only hope. How difficult is it to find a fully matched bone marrow from an unrelated donor in the vast sea of people? Harder than reaching the sky. In their previous life, they searched the entire Chinese bone marrow bank but couldn't find a second suitable match. That's why they placed all their hopes on me. That's why, when the fire broke out, Cruz GU didn't hesitate to choose to save her, because there is only one Lacey Lynn, but there are many women who can be his wife. Cruz GU, in this life, I insist on making him see how his first love will survive without my bone marrow. When I got home, I didn't turn on the lights and went straight into the study. Turning on the computer, I entered an encrypted website and accessed an overseas private medical database. As a top surgeon, I have connections and access. In my previous life, I devoted all my energy to Cruz GU and that small family, neglecting my profession and connections. In this life, I will reclaim everything that belongs to me. I entered Lacey Lynn's name and basic information into the database. Soon, a detailed genetic sequence report appeared on the screen. Looking at the end of the report, I smiled. Just as I remembered, I turned off the computer and dialed Zhongqi's number. Kiki, do me a favor, just say the word, I'll go through hell and high water with you. Help me look up someone named Lin Dishing. He's around 60 years old, did business in City A over 20 years ago, and later seems to have gone abroad. Sure, it's a piece of cake, leave it to me. But why are you looking into this old man? I gaze at the moonlight outside the window, my eyes cold. You'll know once you find out. 4. White Lotus begs on her knees. At 9 o'clock the next morning, I arrived punctually at the hospital's blood draw room. Cruz GU and Lacey Lynn were already waiting there. Lacey Lynn was wearing a blue and white striped hospital gown, her face pale and her lips devoid of color. When she saw me, she immediately put on a pitiful expression, her eyes red as if she were about to burst into tears at any moment. Dr. Shun, thank you. Thank you for coming. She leaned weakly against Cruz GU, as if a gust of wind could knock her over. Cruz GU supported her with a pained heart, his gaze toward me filled with gratitude. Nori. Thank you. I ignored them and walked straight to the nurse, extending my arm. Go ahead and draw the blood. The nurse skillfully drew my blood and applied a cotton swab. I stood up, ready to leave. Lacey Lynn suddenly called out to me. Dr. Shun. She bit her lip and asked cautiously, can we talk? I raised an eyebrow. But before I could speak, Cruz GU spoke first. Lacey is weak and needs to rest. Whatever it is, we can talk about it later. His tone carried a hint of unquestionable protectiveness. Lacey Lynn gave him a resentful glance, then turned to me with a pleading look in her eyes. Just a few minutes, okay. I looked at her standard White Lotus act and sneered inwardly, couldn't hold back anymore and decided to start showing me who's boss. Alright, I'm curious to see what tricks you have up your sleeve. Sure, I nodded. Let's go to the cafe downstairs. The cafe downstairs from the hospital wasn't very crowded. Lacey Lynn and I sat facing each other. She stirred the coffee in front of her, not speaking for a long while, just shedding tears incessantly. I waited patiently, not rushing her. Acting, after all, requires some emotional build-up. Finally, she looked up at me, her eyes red. Dr. Shun. I know that asking you to do the matching must be very difficult for you. Cruz and I, we are truly a thing of the past. If it weren't for this illness, I would never have disturbed your lives again. She paused, her voice choked with emotion. Actually, back when Cruz and I broke up, it wasn't because I didn't love him, but because something happened in my family. My father's company went bankrupt, and we owed a huge debt. I didn't want to burden him, so I chose to go abroad alone. This explanation was exactly the same as in the previous life. Back then, I actually believed her nonsense and thought she was a kind-hearted and loyal girl. Now, it just sounds ridiculous. Oh, really? I picked up my coffee and gently blew on the steam. That's quite touching. My reaction was too indifferent. And Lacey Lynn was clearly caught off guard. She paused for a moment before continuing. I know you don't trust me. It's okay. I'm not here today to explain any of that. I just want to beg you. As she spoke, she suddenly stood up and bowed toward me. Please, you have to save me. I'm still young. I don't want to die. As long as you're willing to donate bone marrow to me, I'll do anything you ask, anything. I set down my coffee cup and looked at her with interest. Yes, I'll do anything. She nodded eagerly. Good, I smiled, leaning back in my chair. Kneel down right now and kowtow to me 3 times. For each one, I'll consider it. Lacey Lynn's face instantly turned deathly pale. 5 divorce agreement. She froze in place, her body trembling uncontrollably, looking at me in disbelief. Dr. Shun, Dr. Shun, you, what, not willing? I raised an eyebrow. Didn't you just say you'd do anything I asked? Her lips quivered, and tears fell like broken strings of pearls. Forget it if you can't do it. I stood up and picked up my bag. Seems like you're not that eager to live after all. I'll kneel. Just as I turned around, she suddenly shouted. Then, under the stunned gazes of everyone in the cafe, she dropped to her knees with a thud, kneeling directly in front of me. The cold marble floor emitted a dull, heavy sound. She lifted her head, her face streaked with tears, her eyes filled with humiliation and resentment. Dr. Shun, I beg you. Gritting her teeth, she bowed her head and knocked it heavily against the floor. 1, 2, 3 times. Each time, she used all her strength. Soon, blood began to seep from her smooth forehead. People around started pointing and taking pictures of us. I looked down at her, my heart completely unmoved. What is this little humiliation compared to what I endured in my previous life? Enough, I said calmly. Get up. Lacey Lynn scrambled up from the ground, clumsily wiping away her tears and blood with the back of her hand. Now, you can consider. The result of my consideration is, I interrupted her, leaning close to her ear and speaking in a voice only the 2 of us could hear. I won't save you. Her pupils suddenly contracted, and her body swayed, nearly collapsing. Why? No reason. I straightened up and adjusted my clothes. I just don't like you, that's all. After saying that, I didn't look at her again and turned to walk out of the cafe. Just as I reached the door, I bumped into Cruz Gu, who was rushing in. He saw the injury on Lacey Lynn's forehead, and his expression instantly darkened. He grabbed my wrist with such force that it felt as if he were trying to crush my bones. Nori Shun, what did you do to her? He shouted my full name, his eyes blazing with fury. I forcefully shook off his hand and looked at him coldly. What did I do? Why don't you ask her yourself? Nori, Lacey is still a patient. How could you treat her like this? He was so angry that his chest heaved violently. Does being a patient give her the right to do whatever she wants? I retorted. Does being a patient justify meddling in someone else's marriage and forcing the wife to donate bone marrow? I didn't. Lacey Lynn cried out. Cruz, don't blame Dr. Shun. I fell by myself. It's not her fault. The more she said this, the more Cruz Gu's heart ached. He supported the unsteady Lacey Lynn, his gaze toward me filled with disappointment and disgust. Nori Shun, I never expected you to be such a malicious woman. Vicious. I laughed. Cruz Gu, you will soon find out what true malice really is. The matching results came out quickly, a perfect match. Just as I expected, Cruz Gu was overjoyed the moment he got the report. He rushed into my office and hugged me excitedly. Nori, that's great, it's a full match. Lacey is saved. I pushed him away in disgust, took a document from the drawer, and slapped it in front of him. You want me to save her? Fine. Sign this first. The smile on Cruz Gu's face froze. He picked up the document, and upon seeing the title, his face instantly turned ashen. It was a divorce agreement. I'm leaving with nothing, but I have one request. Before Lacey Lynn's surgery, Cruz Gu must publish an apology in his personal name in the city's largest media outlet. admitting that he had an affair during the marriage, had an improper relationship with Lacey Lynn, and caused me immense emotional harm. Nori Shun, are you insane? Cruz Gu's voice trembled as he slammed the divorce agreement onto the table. Do you have any idea what this means for me, what it means for the GU group? Of course I know, I said calmly, looking at him. I want to ruin your reputation completely. You, he raised his hand angrily, as if he wanted to hit me. I didn't dodge, just looked at him coldly. In the end, his hand dropped powerlessly. With reddened eyes, he gritted his teeth and asked, Why did you do this? Because I don't want to see you two despicable lovers anymore. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. I'll give you 3 days to decide. Either sign the document, issue a public apology, and I'll save Lacey Lynn, or you can wait to collect her body. After saying that, I picked up my phone and ignored him. In the office, only Cruz Gu's heavy breathing remained. I knew he would sign. For his first love, he would do anything. 3 days later, Cruz Gu indeed came. He brought the signed divorce agreement and a draft of an apology statement. I looked at the statement, which used evasive wording, shifting all the blame onto Lacey Lynn, claiming she was deceived, while he himself was merely confused for a moment. I sneered and tore the draft to shreds. Cruz Gu, are you playing word games with me? I took out another statement I had prepared long ago and threw it at him. Post this as is. Not a single word is to be changed. He looked at the statement I wrote, his face darker than the bottom of a pot. The version I wrote detailed how he rekindled his old flame with Lacey Lynn while I was pregnant, and how he betrayed me both emotionally and physically. Of course, the pregnancy was fake. I just wanted to make things more explosive. Nori Shun, do you have to take things this far? You were the one who acted without mercy first, so don't blame me for being ruthless. I looked at him. Don't forget, Lacey Lynn's time is running out. In the end, he still compromised. The next day, the front pages of the largest financial newspapers and online media in City A were dominated by Cruz Gu's apology statement. Cruz Gu, president of GU Group, admits to marital infidelity and publicly apologizes to his wife Nori Shun. As soon as the news broke, public opinion erupted. The stock price of the GU Group plummeted in response. Cruz Gu became the laughingstock of the entire city. Nailed to the pillar of shame, and I, Nori Shun, became the object of everyone's sympathy, a pitiful woman betrayed by her husband and first love together. I look at the overwhelming flood of insults and sympathy online, but I don't feel the slightest bit of satisfaction. This is just the beginning. The real show is yet to come. 6 father and daughter reunite. After Cruz Gu's public apology, Lacey Lynn's transplant surgery was scheduled. The day before the surgery, I was admitted to the hospital. Cruz Gu also came. He stood at the door of my hospital room, looking haggard with dark circles under his eyes. In just a few days, he seemed to have aged 10 years. Nori, he began, his voice hoarse. I'm sorry, no need to apologize. I lay on the hospital bed, staring at the ceiling. Mr. Gu must be very busy now, right? The company's stock has fallen so much, and you still have the mood to visit your ex-wife. A flicker of embarrassment crossed his face. I'll handle the company matters. I came to thank you. What are you thanking me for? I turned my head and looked at him. For ruining your reputation, or for my mercy in being willing to save the one you love? Cruz Gu clenched his fist, but eventually loosened it. Nori, I know you hate me. Once Lacey's surgery is done, whatever revenge you want to take on me, I'll accept it. Is that so? I laughed. Cruz Gu, it seems you've misunderstood something. What? I never intended to save her. His pupils sharply contracted. I took a medical record from under the pillow and threw it to him. See for yourself. His hands trembled as he opened the medical record, and when he saw the diagnosis, he froze completely. Aplastic anemia. How could? Surprised, I sat up, looking at him calmly. I found out during my physical exam 2 months ago. This disease, while not fatal, strictly prohibits bone marrow donation. Otherwise, the donor could be in life-threatening danger. You knew all along. His voice was filled with disbelief. Yes, I nodded. I knew all along. The reason I agreed and played along with this charade was to see just how low you would stoop for your first love. As it turns out, you really didn't let me down. Cruz Gu's face instantly turned as pale as a sheet of paper. It was as if all the strength had been drained from his body. He staggered back 2 steps and leaned against the wall. You lied to me. You've been lying to me all along. Same here, I shrugged. Compared to you deceiving me for 3 years, what I did is nothing, Nori Shin. He suddenly charged at me like an enraged lion, grabbing my shoulders. How can you be so heartless? Lacey will die, she really will die, and what does that have to do with me? I pushed him away forcefully, whether she lives or dies. What does it have to do with me? You, he raised his hand, about to slap me. The door of the hospital room was suddenly pushed open. Zhongqi rushed in with 2 security guards. Cruz Gu, don't you dare lay a finger on her. The security guards immediately restrained Cruz Gu, 1 on each side. Cruz Gu was still struggling frantically, his eyes bloodshot as he glared at me. Nori Shin, you poisonous woman, I'm going to kill you. I watched coldly as he barked like a mad dog. Finding it utterly ridiculous, drag him out, I said to the security guard. Yes, Dr. Shin. Cruz Gu was forcibly dragged out of the ward, still cursing incessantly. Zhongqi closed the door, quickly walked to my bedside, and asked with concern, Nori, are you okay? I shook my head. What could possibly happen to me? This guy is really crazy. Zhongqi was furious. But you're something else, coming up with such a trick and making them run around in circles. She gave me a thumbs up. By the way, I have news about that old man named Lin Dishing you asked me to look into. I perked up. Tell me, that old man is now in Canada. A somewhat well-known Chinese-Canadian wealthy businessman. I had someone look into his background, and guess what? Zhongqi smiled mysteriously. His only daughter went missing in City A over 20 years ago. He's been searching all these years and still hasn't found her, and the most crucial part is, Zhongqi lowered his voice. I managed to get the old man's genetic sequence and compared it with Lacey Lin's, and the result, I pressed, the probability of a biological relationship is 99%. I laughed. The fish has taken the bait. 7 kidney source transaction. Lacey Lin soon received the news that I was unable to donate bone marrow. I heard that she broke down on the spot, crying and making a scene in the hospital room, almost going into shock. Cruz Gu stayed by her bedside, not leaving for a moment. As for me, I completed the discharge procedures and returned to my apartment. I gave them 3 days to process this devastating news. 3 days later, I had Zhongqi anonymously send an email to major media outlets in City A. The content of the email was simple, just a paternity test report. It was for Lindsay and Lacey Lin. The email also included an emotional narrative, telling a touching story about a wealthy businessman desperately searching for his long-lost daughter, who was suffering from leukemia and fighting for her life. The news once again ignited public opinion as soon as it broke. Netizens who were condemning Lacey Lin as the other woman just a few days ago quickly changed their stance. Everyone began to sympathize with this unfortunate girl, who has a tragic background and is suffering from a serious illness. The topic #the real heiress of a wealthy family suffers from leukemia quickly rose to the top of the trending searches. Lin Dishing, who was far away in Canada, naturally saw this news as well. He immediately took his private jet and rushed back to City A. In the hospital, the father and daughter put on a deeply moving reunion scene. Lin Dishing held Lacey Lin in his arms, tears streaming down his aged face. Daughter, my dear daughter, Dad has finally found you. Lacey Lin was also crying uncontrollably. Dad, I thought I would never see you again in this lifetime. Cruz Gu stood to the side, watching the scene with a relieved smile on his face. He probably thought that Lacey Lin would be saved now. The probability of a successful bone marrow match with a biological father is almost 100%. He immediately arranged for Linda Sheng to undergo the matching test. The results came out, and it was indeed a perfect match. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. A hint of color finally returned to Lacey Lin's face. She even took the initiative to call me. On the other end of the line, her voice carried a trace of unconcealable triumph. Nori Shin, didn't expect that, did you? Heaven still favors me. Even without you, I can still survive. Is that so? I responded indifferently. Congratulations to you then. Not only can I survive, but I'll live better than you. She laughed. My dad said that once I recover, he'll let me marry Cruz, when that time comes. With the powerful alliance between the Gu family and my dad's company, do you think you'll still be able to stay in this city for the rest of your life? A blatant threat. I chuckled lightly. Lacey Lin, aren't you celebrating too early? What do you mean? Nothing much. I hung up the phone. Lacey Lin, Do you really think that finding your biological father means everything will be fine? You're too naive. Linderson quickly arranged the pre-donation physical examination. The medical report came out. And everything was normal. The bone marrow collection could be done at any time. The surgery is scheduled for a week later. Everyone is immersed in joy and anticipation. Only I know that this surgery will never happen, because Linderson simply won't donate. In my previous life, after I died, Zhongqi, while rushing around for my sake, inadvertently uncovered the truth about Linderson. He is indeed Lacey Lin's biological father, but he is also a complete hypocrite. The reason he was so eager to reunite with Lacey Lin was not out of paternal love, but because he had uremia and urgently needed a kidney transplant, and Lacey Lin is the only suitable kidney match. He wanted to exchange his bone marrow for one of his daughter's kidneys. What a fair trade. It's just a pity that, in my previous life, I died. Lacey Lin had no other choice but to accept her father's conditions. She traded a kidney for her life. But in this life, I am here. How could I let her get what she wants so easily? 8 life and death decision. The night before the surgery, I arranged to meet Linderson at a tea house. He looked a bit older than in the photos, but the shrewdness of his youth was still visible in his eyes and brows. He seemed a little surprised to see me. Dr. Shun, what brings you to see me, Mr. Lin? Long time no see. I sat down opposite him and got straight to the point. Let's not beat around the bush. You're looking for Lacey Lin because of her kidney, aren't you? Linderson's face instantly changed. His hand holding the teacup trembled slightly. Dr. Shun, I don't understand what you're saying. You don't understand. I smiled. Mr. Lin, you have end-stage renal disease, also known as uremia, and you need dialysis 3 times a week. You haven't told your precious daughter about this yet, have you? His face completely darkened. How did you know, if you don't want others to know? Don't do it yourself. I poured him a cup of tea. You went to great lengths to return to the country to acknowledge your family ties and put on this whole act of deep father-daughter affection. Isn't it just to make Lacey Lin willingly donate her kidney to you? Do you think that by saving her life with your bone marrow, she'll be so grateful that she'll grant your every request? Let me tell you, Linderson, you've miscalculated. I took a stack of photos out of my bag and threw them in front of him. The photo shows Lacey Lin's various extravagant spending records, as well as intimate photos of her with different men. This daughter of yours is no easy person to deal with. She's selfish, vain, and fickle. Do you think she would sacrifice one of her kidneys for a biological father who hasn't cared for her for over 20 years? Linderson's face grew increasingly grim. He stared intently at the photos. His breathing becoming heavy. I continued to press further. And, I can also tell you one more thing. Lacey Lin's blood type is Rh negative, which is what we commonly call panda blood. For someone with this blood type, if one kidney is removed, the risks of future pregnancy and childbirth would be extremely high. Do you think she would give up her right to become a mother for you? Lindershung's lips began to turn pale, and cold sweat beaded on his forehead. I looked at him and revealed my ultimate intention. However, you don't need to despair too much. Your condition doesn't necessarily require a kidney transplant. He suddenly raised his head, a glimmer of hope flashing in his eyes. What do you mean? I'm a doctor, I said calmly. I know the world's top nephrology experts. There's a new stem cell therapy that, while it can't completely cure your disease, can free you from dialysis and allow you to live like a normal person. The only catch is that it's very expensive. How much? He asked eagerly. 100 million. I held up one finger. He gasped sharply, and, I added, this treatment slot is extremely rare, only 5 are available worldwide each year. I'll need to pull a lot of strings to secure it for you. A look of struggle appeared on Lindershung's face. 100 million, while not a small amount for him, is not something he can't come up with. Using 100 million to exchange for his health in the latter half of his life, and a daughter who might turn on him at any moment, he knows how to do the math. Why should I believe you? He looked at me. His eyes filled with doubt. You have no other choice. I stood up. Tomorrow is the day of the surgery. Whether to donate or not is your decision to make. If you decide to cooperate, transfer the money to this account by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. I left a business card, remember. Your time is running out too. With that, I turned and left the tea house. I knew he would make the right choice, because a selfish person like him will always love only himself the most. 9 threatening to jump off a building. The next day, outside the operating room, Lacey Lynn had already been moved into the sterile unit and was prepared for the surgery. Cruz GU stood in the corridor, anxiously waiting. Time passed minute by minute, the scheduled surgery time had already passed. But Lindsay had yet to appear. Cruz GU's expression grew increasingly grim. He kept calling Lindsay's phone, but no one answered on the other end. A sense of foreboding hung over everyone. Just then, my phone rang. It's a bank notification of a received payment, 100 million yuan, not a penny less. I smiled, put away my phone, and slowly walked toward Cruz GU. Mr. GU, no need to wait any longer. I said, Mr. Lin, he won't be coming. Cruz GU turned around abruptly, glaring at me fiercely. It's you. Was it you who did this? What could I have done? I spread my hands innocently. I just told Mr. Lin some truths. For example, what kind of person his precious daughter really is. You. Cruz GU trembled with anger. Nori Shin, what exactly do you want? What do I want? I walked up to him, looking straight into his eyes. Cruz GU, I don't want anything. I just want you to see with your own eyes how the woman you've worked so hard to protect is heading step by step toward her death. You crazy man, he roared, as if about to lunge forward. Several nurses hurriedly held him back. At that moment, the door to the operating room opened. The chief surgeon walked out, removed his mask, his face filled with gravity. Mr. GU, the donor has lost contact. Miss Lin's condition is very critical. Her body has developed a severe rejection reaction. If the transplant cannot be performed within today, the doctor didn't finish his sentence, but everyone understood what he meant. Cruz GU staggered as if all his strength had been drained. He leaned against the wall and slowly slid to the ground, his face filled with endless despair. Lacey Lin was wheeled out of the operating room and sent back to the intensive care unit. Her life was now on a countdown. I stood outside the ward, watching her lying on the hospital bed through the glass. She was on a ventilator, with various tubes inserted into her body, and the heartbeat curve on the vital signs monitor was gradually flattening. Once that arrogant first love is now just a shell waiting for death. Cruz GU knelt at the door of the hospital room, like a madman, continuously banging his head against the wall. Nori, I beg you, please save her, he cried like a child, with snot and tears streaming down his face. I was wrong, it's all my fault, I shouldn't have betrayed you. I shouldn't have treated you that way. As long as you're willing to save her, I'll do anything you ask, I'd even die for it. Looking at him in such a pitiful state, I felt not a shred of pity. If you knew it would come to this, why did you act that way in the first place? Want me to save her? I crouched down, looked into his eyes, and smiled. Sure, Cruz GU, if you jump from here, I'll donate. I pointed to the window at the end of the corridor. This is the 18th floor. Jumping down would mean certain death. Cruz GU froze, staring at me with shock and fear in his eyes. He probably didn't expect me to make such a demand. What? Scared now? I stood up, dusting off my hands. It seems your love for her is just that shallow. I turned to leave. Behind me, his trembling voice came through. All right, I'll jump. The truth comes out. I stopped in my tracks and turned around. Cruz GU had already stood up and was walking step by step toward that window. His back view actually looked somewhat resolute. The people around were stunned. A few nurses tried to step forward to stop him but were pushed aside by him. He walked to the window, turned around, and looked at me. His eyes were very red, filled with regret, pain, and a hint of something I couldn't understand. Nori, if my death could ease your anger and bring Lacey back to life, I would be willing. He gave a bitter smile. I only ask that in our next life, you never meet me again. After saying this, he closed his eyes and leaned backward. No, a scream pierced the silence of the corridor. It was Zhongqi. She had no idea when she arrived, but when she saw the scene, her face turned pale with fear. She rushed over, trying to grab Cruz GU, but it was already too late. I stood where I was, watching coldly. I thought I would see him fall, but there was nothing. Cruz GU's body swayed outside the window for a moment before being abruptly pulled back by a force. Pulling him back were two men in police uniforms. Behind them, several people with stern expressions followed. The one leading, I recognize, Captain Lee from the Municipal Public Security Bureau. In my previous life, he was the one in charge of investigating the fire that involved my parents. Captain Lee walked up to me and gave me a nod. Then, he turned to Cruz GU and showed the handcuffs. Cruz GU, you are suspected of an arson and murder case from 15 years ago, as well as commercial fraud. You are now under arrest." The cold handcuffs were clamped onto Cruz GU's wrists. Cruz GU was completely stunned. He stared blankly at Captain Lee, then looked at me. "Arson, murder, what are you talking about? I don't understand." "It's okay if you don't understand." Captain Lee patted his face. "Once we get to the station, you'll have plenty of time to think it over." Cruz GU was taken away by the police. As he passed by me, he stared at me intently, his eyes filled with resentment and confusion. "It was you did it, right?" I didn't answer him, because there was no need anymore. Zhongqi ran to my side, patting her chest with a look of lingering fear. "Oh my God, that scared me to death. He was really about to jump just now." "Nori, what on earth is going on? What arson and murder case?" Watching Cruz GU being escorted into the elevator, I said calmly, "A truth that's 15 years overdue, I suppose." "Yes, the truth, a truth I never knew until the moment before my death. After being reborn, I've been pondering one question. Why was that fire in my previous life such a coincidence? It happened right after I donated bone marrow, when my body was at its weakest. It just so happened to block the exit of our hospital room. Everything seemed to be meticulously planned, so I asked Zhongqi to help me reinvestigate the case file of my parents' fire from 15 years ago. I was shocked by what I found when I looked into it. It turns out that the fire was not an accident at all, but it was an arson. The fire started in my family's company warehouse. At the time, the person responsible for guarding the warehouse was a young man who had just turned 18. That young man was Cruz GU, 11, a new beginning. Back then, my father's company had business dealings with Cruz GU's father. Mr. GU's company was in a severe financial crisis at the time and owed my father's company a large sum of money. To evade this debt, Mr. GU devised a malicious scheme. He had his son, Cruz GU, set fire to the warehouse to burn all the account books and goods, making it look like an accident. That way, with no evidence left, the debts wouldn't have to be repaid. Cruz GU did as he was told. But what he didn't expect was that my parents were in the warehouse that night, taking inventory of the goods. A fire that was supposed to only destroy goods turned into a tragedy that claimed 2 lives. Afterward, Mr. GU used his connections to cover up the incident. They bribed all the witnesses and destroyed all the evidence. In the end, the fire was classified as an accident, and the GU family, using the insurance money they swindled from my parents and the debts they evaded, made a comeback. Gradually expanding to become the GU Corporation of today, Cruz GU also transformed from a poor boy into the high and mighty President GU. All of this, I only uncovered after my rebirth, at a great cost. I handed over all the evidence to Captain Lee. Captain Lee is an upright man who, under immense pressure, has reopened the investigation into this cold case. Today is the day to close the net. As for the hospital fire in my previous life, it was merely history repeating itself. Cruz GU. To ensure Lacey Lynn could smoothly obtain my bone marrow and avoid being pestered by me afterward, resorted to the same old trick. He started a fire, hoping I would die in it without anyone knowing. This way, he could save his first love and get rid of me. The trouble, once and for all, unfortunately. Man proposes, but God disposes. Little did he know that I would be reborn. After Cruz GU was taken away, Lacey Lynn's side completely lost hope. She held on for less than 24 hours in the intensive care unit before passing away due to multiple organ failure. When he died, there wasn't a single person by his side. Her so-called biological father, Linda Sheng, flew back to Canada immediately after receiving my money and never showed up again. A meticulously planned conspiracy finally ended with all the villains receiving the punishment they deserved. Cruz GU was sentenced to death for multiple charges including arson, intentional homicide, and commercial fraud. The GU group was also sealed off and declared bankrupt due to issues such as tax evasion and falsifying accounts. I stood in the courtroom gallery, watching as Cruz GU was escorted away by the bailiffs. From a distance, he looked at me. In his eyes, there was no longer any hatred, only despair as bleak as dead ashes. I don't know if he regretted it, but it no longer matters. As we left the courthouse, the sunlight was just right. Zhongqi came to pick me up in her little red sports car. "Where shall we go to celebrate?" beautiful Shin?" she asked, wearing sunglasses with a bright smile on her face. I got into the passenger seat and watched the scenery receding outside the window. "Let's go to the cemetery. I went to visit my parents." I burned a copy of the verdict in front of their tombstones. In the rising smoke, I seemed to see their relieved smiles. "Dad, Mom, I've avenged you." I leaned against the tombstone and whispered softly, "Your daughter will be fine in the future." A gust of wind blew, scattering the ashes and drying the tears at the corners of my eyes. As I was leaving the cemetery, I received a call from an unknown number. On the other end of the phone was a gentle male voice. "Hello? Is this Dr. Nori Shin?" "Yes, it's me. My name is Lu Jixing, and I'm a lawyer. I'm also one of the survivors of the fire back then." My heart skipped a beat. "I have some information about your parents that I'd like to discuss with you in person. Would that be convenient for you?" I gaze at the distant sky. A white dove flies past. I smiled and said, "All right, life is always about bidding farewell to the past while welcoming new beginnings. This time, I believe it will be a beautiful beginning." The end. That's all for the first story. Don't go away. The next one is even more exciting. After being diagnosed with terminal cancer, I finally had the wedding I had waited 50 years for. My partner held the microphone and led his first love to stand before me. "Shuyi, after you pass away, I will take good care of myself." After saying this, he performed a romantic gesture I had never experienced from him. He knelt on one knee and put a ring on his first love's finger. "Ningxi, after all these years we've missed, we can finally be together." I angrily tried to push myself forward, but my daughter stopped me. "Mom, please go in peace. Our family of 3 will live well together. There's one more thing I won't hide from you anymore. Actually, I am Aunt Gu's daughter." Back then, Dad felt sorry for my mom and had the fertilized egg transplanted. "It has entered your body." I was so enraged that it caused my cancer to spread prematurely. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the year my daughter was 6, and my husband had also been reborn. "Song Shuyi, stop mopping the floor. I saw your husband picking up your daughter from kindergarten with that vixen." The neighbor's kind reminder snapped me out of the tragic memories from my past life. I thanked her and immediately rushed to the kindergarten. As soon as I arrived at the kindergarten, I saw my daughter Shan Shan sitting on Jiu Ningxi's lap. I carefully hid outside the door and took out my phone to gather evidence. Shan Shan complained to Xie Huaiji with a face full of grievance. "Dad, when can I be reunited with my real mom? That bad woman at home only knows how to nag me about studying all day. I don't want to live with her anymore." Amid Shanshan's endless complaints, Jiu Ningxi couldn't help but pout at Xie Huaiji coquettishly. "Yes, Huaiji, you've already used Song Shui's womb. So why haven't you divorced her yet?" Xie Huaiji's expression stiffened, and he seemed somewhat troubled. "Now is not the right time to bring up divorce. This matter must be carefully considered." Jiu Ningxi punched Xie Huaiji, her face full of resentment. "Huaiji, we finally have a second chance. Don't you want to make up for the happiness we missed in our previous life?" I never expected this. Xie Huaiji and Jiu Ningxi were actually reborn as well. After a moment of thought, I took a deep breath. Even though these people made me sick to my stomach, but for now, I have to hold back. Only by obtaining evidence of Xie Huaiji's infidelity and deception can I make him leave with nothing, thereby securing enough money to treat my future cancer. I turned and walked away. While starting to recall what had happened during these few days in my previous life, the first thing I did after returning home was to install hidden cameras in corners they wouldn't notice. I waited quietly for 3 days. As expected, Xie Huaiji returned with his daughter and Jiu Ningxi. Just like in the previous life, as soon as he saw me, he confidently informed me, "You already know that Ningxi's parents have had an accident, and she's now homeless. I plan to bring her to stay with us for a while." In the previous life, when Xie Huaiji made this suggestion, I was deeply provoked and had a fierce argument with Xie Huaiji, even slapping Jiu Ningxi in the face on the spot and telling her to get lost. In the end, Xie Huaiji said I was being unreasonable and disappeared with our daughter for 3 months. It wasn't until just before my death that I found out Xie Huaiji had taken them abroad to splurge during those 3 months, and it was precisely because I had strongly opposed it. So Xie Huaiji never showed any signs of infidelity again after that, which ultimately led to my tragic death. This time, I changed my decision. I put on a smile, stepped forward, and took Jiu Ningxi's hand. Ningxi is your childhood friend and dear sister. So I should treat her like a sister, just as you do. When is your sister planning to move in? I'll go clean the room right now. Xia Huaiji and Jiyu Ningxi were both stunned. Shuyi, you agree just like that? Xia Huaiji looked at me suspiciously, as if wondering why I was different from my previous life. I nodded vigorously. Husband, haven't you always complained that I don't know how to be considerate and that I'm not gentle or tolerant enough? I want to try to change myself and become a wife who pleases you. My obedient demeanor quickly made Xia Huaiji let down his guard. He coaxed me with a beaming smile. Shuyi, I knew marrying you was the right decision. Hearing Xia Huaiji say this, Jiyu Ningxi immediately put on a pitiful expression, mimicking my act of being sensible. Huaiji, actually, I wouldn't mind making do with a hotel. Wouldn't it be too much trouble for you all if I stayed here? Although Sister Shuyi didn't say anything, I'm sure she must be unhappy deep down. I didn't give Jiyu Ningxi a chance to act like a green tea. I pulled her into the house right away. Not at all. From today onwards, you can settle in this home with peace of mind. What's mine is yours. Seeing me like this, Xia Huaiji also became even more presumptuous. That's right, Ningxi, if you need anything, just tell Shuyi, out of the corner of my eye. I saw Jiyu Ningxi gritting her teeth and glaring at me with disdain, while even Shanshan stuck her tongue out at me in disgust. Sure enough, as soon as I turned my back, I heard Shanshan whispering to Jiyu Ningxi, that old witch is pretending again. She definitely has bad intentions. Mom, don't worry. I will definitely protect you. I hid my cold smile and began to make a big show of preparing dinner for them. The neighbors were very curious when they saw me buying so much food today. Are you having guests over today? Buying so much chicken, duck, fish, and meat, it's like celebrating the new year early. I shook my head and told them directly, it was my husband who brought his first love back to live in our home. From now on, I'll have to take care of one more person. So naturally I'll need to buy more groceries. Neighbors who had long heard of Jiyu Ningxi were utterly astonished. Your husband, who usually flirts with that seductress, actually brought her straight home. Have you no shame at all? I really feel for you, my dear. I lowered my face and stayed silent, making everyone think I had been wronged. Given my reputation among the neighbors, I knew this matter would soon spread throughout the neighborhood. I made a big table full of dishes in the evening, and Xia Huaiji was extremely satisfied, praising me non-stop. You really are such a capable wife. I feel completely at ease leaving Ningxi in your care. In front of Xia Huaiji, Jiyu Ningxi could only force a smile. But that night, just as I had taken off my clothes to take a shower, Jiyu Ningxi suddenly barged into the bathroom. She stood at the doorway, screaming in horror at my post-pregnancy belly. Shuyi, your stomach looks like it's covered with countless maggots. It's so disgusting. Xia Huaiji rushed over upon hearing the noise, seeing me at a loss, covering my body. Xia Huaiji, in front of me, hugged a terrified Jiyu Ningxi. If it disgusts you, don't look. Shanshan is clamoring for you to play with her, so go ahead. After coaxing Jiyu Ningxi away, he paused for a moment, then turned to comfort me. Ningxi has never had a child, so she doesn't know about these things. Please don't take it to heart. After saying that, she closed the door for me. Biting my lower lip and touching my stretch marks, I couldn't stop the tears from falling. Xia Huaiji did all this to spare Jiyu Ningxi from the various pains of childbirth. I transplanted their child into my womb. For 10 months of pregnancy, I suffered from morning sickness and vomited for 10 months. I also experienced all the pregnancy-related issues, stretch marks, urinary incontinence, hemorrhoids, and gynecological diseases. Originally, it was because I loved Xia Huaiji. So I also loved our child and was willing to endure these pains. But it wasn't until just before death that I realized I was just a foolish pawn. I fiercely wiped away my tears and deliberately stayed in the bathroom for a long time, giving Xia Huaiji and Jiyu Ningxi a chance to be alone together. After leaving the bathroom, I turned around and went for a walk in the neighborhood. I intentionally went to the most crowded exercise area, constantly dabbing my tears with a handkerchief. My neighbors who know me came up to show their concern. Shuyi, what's wrong? What's upsetting you? I sighed, tears streaming down my face. My husband brought his unforgettable first love home to live with us, and I don't dare disturb them at home. But my heart aches so much. Just now his first love mocked the stretch marks on my stomach, saying they look like maggots. After spreading their ugly affair, I dawdled my way back home, As soon as I entered the house, Shan Shan threw a toy at me. My bunny is dirty. Go wash it for me now. I picked up the toy with a cold stare and threw it back. Aren't you very fond of Aunt Ningxi? Let her wash it for you. Shan Shan immediately jumped off the sofa, put her hands on her hips, and yelled at me. Aunt Ningxi's hands are so fair and delicate, she absolutely must not do any dirty or tiring work. You gave birth to me, so it's only right that you serve me. I looked at my own hands, rough and cracked from years of doing household chores, and sneered, if you like Aunt Ningxi so much, why don't you just make her your mother? Shan Shan immediately snorted. I'd be more than happy. Who wants you to be my mother? In the midst of the standoff, Xiaohuaiji and Jiyu Ningxi came out of the bedroom together. Seeing my cold expression, Xiaohuaiji also gave me a cold look. Is this how a mother should act? Ningxi is a guest. How could you have the nerve to make her share the housework? Shan Shan nodded vigorously. Exactly. Aunt Ningxi isn't like you. You were born to be a servant. Jiyu Ningxi, appearing flustered but actually quite pleased, picked up Shan Shan. Shuyi, children say the darndest things. Please don't take it to heart. I'll take Shan Shan out to play now so she doesn't upset you again. After saying that, she pointed to a basin of dirty clothes. By the way, these are the underwear I changed out of today. Could you please help me wash them, Sister Shuyi? Those are all silk, so they can't go in the washing machine. They must be hand-washed. I didn't say a word. Only after their family of 3 had left, I put all the clothes in a basin to soak. Then stomped on them with my feet until they were completely ruined. When Jiyu Ningxi returned, she was indeed angry at the sight of the ruined clothes. Didn't I tell you to hand-wash them? Look, these clothes are all ruined. Could it be that you're unhappy about me moving in and deliberately sabotaging me? Perhaps it was because she knew the outcome of my previous life, where I was angered to death. So Jiyu Ningxi considered herself the lady of the house, pouting and complaining about me in front of Xiaohuaiji and Shan Shan. Shan Shan also glared at me fiercely, clumsy as a big so. Seeing the awkward atmosphere, Xiaohuaiji began to coax Jiyu Ningxi again. Pregnancy brain lasts 3 years. She's been like this ever since giving birth. Don't get angry over such a small matter. I'll compensate you for the ruined clothes. I'll buy you new ones. Jiyu Ningxi blinked her eyes. So pregnancy and childbirth can make you this foolish. Good thing I haven't had any children. As he spoke, he raised the corner of his eye and gave me a provocative glance. The deeper meaning behind his words was self-evident. I clenched my fists but couldn't lash out. To cover it up, I lowered my head and sobbed quietly, placing my hands behind my back and putting on a pitiful expression. This earned Jiyu Ningxi another round of sarcastic remarks. Shuyi, you're not that young anymore, and you've already had a child. Playing the victim really doesn't look good on you. It's actually a bit laughable. A housewife should act like a housewife, don't you think? Shan Shan clapped along. Aunt Ningxi is right. However, Xiaohuaiji noticed I kept my head down and walked over to me. Let's forget about what happened today. Just be more careful in the future and try not to upset Ningxi. I already knew through the hidden camera. Jiyu Ningxi is deliberately bullying me. She doesn't want to wait until she's 50 to marry Xiaohuaiji like in her previous life, so she and Xiaohuaiji are playing good cop, bad cop, trying to torment me on purpose and force me to ask for a divorce. As long as I take the initiative to ask for a divorce, Xiaohuaiji can preserve most of his assets and openly kick me out. However, they are unaware of this, so their clever plans are doomed to fail. I have gathered enough evidence. Chapter 2. That evening, I expressed my intention to make amends to Jiyu Ningxi by preparing a large table of dishes. However, as I was carrying the scalding soup out of the kitchen, suddenly, a foot stretched out and tripped me solidly. The moment I fell, I knew something terrible was about to happen. With quick reflexes, I immediately flung the soup pot away from me and fell backward onto the ground. Bang! Even though I avoided being scalded, the back of my head still hit the ground hard. Jiyu Ningxi walked out leisurely with Shan Shan from the side, watching me fall flat on my back. Shan Shan burst into laughter, hopping and jumping. The ugly woman took a nasty fall. Ha ha ha! Jiyu Ningxi hypocritically tried to stop Shan Shan. You should help your mom up when she falls. How can you laugh at her? On one hand, she looked at me indifferently. Shuyi, how could you be so careless? Look, the perfectly good soup has been spilled. What a waste. She pointed at the pot that had fallen and the soup splattered all over the floor, then urged me, are you okay? If you're fine, hurry and wipe the floor. When your husband comes back and sees this mess, he'll definitely be very angry. After all, you're just a worn-out shoe who's had a child. No one but Xiaohuaiji would want you. I suppressed the raging fury in my heart, endured the pain, and silently got up to clean up. After dinner, I deliberately limped out the door. Then, in the place where the neighbors gathered for exercise, I tearfully recounted what Jiyu Ningxi had done to me. The neighbor lady took pity on me, brought me home, and offered me some fruit to comfort me. Her whole family was also worried about me. You've been away from home for so long. What if that cheating couple sneaks into bed while you're not around? Exactly. In my opinion, your husband brought that vixen home just to do something bad. I sighed and wiped the corner of my eye. It shouldn't be, especially with the child around. After saying that, I grabbed my neighbor's hand with a worried expression. But I'm really worried too. What if they, otherwise, big sister, why don't you come home with me? What if they really did something disgraceful? Before I could finish, I was choked with tears again. The neighbor and her husband were both furious and insisted on going home with me. If they really have the nerve to do something so shameless, we can help you catch them in the act. I immediately bowed to the big brother and sister with immense gratitude. Thank you so much. I really wouldn't know what to do without you. As we spoke, they led me home with an imposing air. When we reached the door, they reminded me to move quietly so as not to alert anyone inside. Through remote monitoring, I knew they were doing something shameful in the room at that moment. I tiptoed through the door and waited in front of the bedroom. I took out the spare key I had prepared long ago and directly inserted it into the lock to open the door. As soon as the door was pushed open, with a loud thud, someone fell off the bed, my neighbor, and I looked up. Jiyu Ningxi was hurriedly pulling the blanket to hide in the corner. I abandoned my previously timid and submissive demeanor and shouted with full force, Xiaohuaiji, what are you and Jiyu Ningxi doing sneaking around in the room, not giving them time to react? I rushed up to Jiyu Ningxi and slapped her left cheek with a loud smack. Staying at my house is one thing, but to seduce my husband in broad daylight, have you no shame at all? Shanshan from next door heard the commotion and hurried over. Seeing me being rough with Jiyu Ningxi, she immediately stepped in to protect her. Don't you dare bully Aunt Ningxi. The neighbors, the older brother and sister, were very surprised. Shanshan, she is your mother after all. How can you side with an outsider? I smiled and then slapped Jiyu Ningxi on the right cheek again. You seduced my husband, and now you even want to take my daughter away. What kind of spell have you cast on her? It seems like she's about to start calling you mom. I roared so loudly that the entire floor could hear, and I was about to snatch Shanshan back. Jiyu Ningxi was stunned by my slap, covering her face and not knowing how to react. Shanshan, feeling indignant on behalf of Jiyu Ningxi, grabbed my forearm and bit me hard. How dare you hit Aunt Ningxi, you bad woman, I'm going to bite you to death. I no longer held back with Shanshan, directly pulling her away and throwing her onto the bed. Shanshan had never seen me act so rough before and was scared into wailing loudly. Dad, the bad woman is bullying me. Seeing this, Xiaohuaiji, who was nearby, quickly pulled up his pants and came over to grab my arm. Song Shuyi, are you out of your mind? What kind of scene are you making like this? I scoffed. If you're afraid of embarrassment, then don't do such shameful things. It's one thing to be constantly entangled with your first love, but now you're even letting my daughter call her mom. Anyone who doesn't know better would think you're the real family, honestly, because I deliberately left the door open. The commotion here attracted many neighbors. They had long heard about Xiaohuaiji and Jiyu Ningxi's notorious behavior, coupled with the fact that they were caught in the act. They all crowded into my house, pointing fingers at Xiaohuaiji and Jiyu Ningxi. How shameless, actually bringing the mistress home to have an affair. This daughter is no good either, actually helping the other woman bully her own mother. Shanshan was terrified by the scene and kept hiding beside Jiyu Ningxi. Aunt Ningxi, I'm scared. Jiyu Ningxi held Shanshan, her eyes reddening, and immediately burst into tears with a pitiful expression. Sister Shuyi, I was just feeling uncomfortable due to back pain, and Xiaohuaiji was only helping me with a massage. Xiaohuaiji and I have a completely innocent relationship. You can slander me, but you shouldn't doubt your husband. Xiaohuaiji, flustered and eager to please, also pulled me aside to insist on an explanation. I've always treated Jiyu Ningxi like a sister. You know that. What could we possibly do in such a short time? I knew you wouldn't just accept Ningxi moving in quietly. Did you bring someone here on purpose to slander her? Xiaoji probably didn't expect me to have changed so much in this lifetime. He narrowed his eyes, trying to gauge my reaction. To keep him from suspecting, I also wiped my tears with a pitiful look. Honey, I've never doubted you, but the gossip outside has really made me anxious. The neighbor lady couldn't stand it any longer and stood by my side with her husband. It was us who suggested your wife come back to catch you in the act. So what, if you're truly innocent, why get so defensive? We've all seen the disgraceful things you and that vixen have been up to. After saying that, the eldest sister turned around and started spreading the word to the neighbors. We just heard the sounds of them doing something shameful outside the bedroom door. It was so embarrassing. When the door was pushed open, Shui's husband was right on top of that vixen. The neighbors were all worked up. Some said to beat the mistress, some said to post it online, and some encouraged me to get a divorce. Xiaohuaiji was somewhat embarrassed and started arguing with the neighbors. Is it any of your business to meddle in our family affairs? Get out of here, all of you. After saying that, he glared at me fiercely. Song Shui, you've really made something of yourself. Just look at the mess you've made. Don't forget, it was you who begged me to marry you back then. I was just being kind by taking care of my childhood friend, and you go and create such a scandal to get back at me. With such a malicious attitude, how can this relationship possibly last? Sure enough, Xiaohuaiji turned the tables on me and shifted all the blame onto me. Indeed, I was the one who actively pursued Xiaohuaiji, all because Xiaohuaiji has a high level of education, a Ph.D. While I only graduated from a junior college and come from a small town, so when facing Xiaohuaiji, I always feel full of inferiority. I have always been timid and submissive, only silently giving to Xiaohuaiji. Whether he was cold or hungry, I would always be busy taking care of him. After he and Jiyu Ningxi were separated by fate and couldn't be together, it was I who stayed by his side every day to comfort him. He had sex with me while drunk and didn't want to take responsibility. It was also me who lowered my self-esteem and said it was okay. Later, Xiaohuaiji finally agreed to be in a relationship and marry me. I thought it was my persistent sincerity that moved him. Only before death did I understand. When Xiaohuaiji married me, he had already planned to use my womb. As long as the fertilized egg was placed in my womb, Jiyu Ningxi could painlessly have a child. But their exploitation of me did not stop just because I had a child. They treated me like an unpaid nanny. Raising Shanshan, buying her a house and a car, I poured my life's efforts into my daughter, usually even reluctant to buy myself some fruit to eat. But in the end, this daughter still deliberately angered me on my deathbed. These three people have practically taken everything from me, inside and out. On the day I was reborn, I decided to take back everything that belongs to me. But at this moment, I'm not in a hurry to break things off with Xiaohuaiji. I just acted as I always do, playing the easy-to-bully role, and pulled Xiaohuaiji along. Husband, since you despise me so much, let's get a divorce. The neighbors were even worried on my behalf. It's your husband who made the mistake. You don't need to be afraid. Xiaohuaiji's eyes lit up. Shui, I never said I wanted a divorce. But if you want one, I can grant it to you. He turned and exchanged a glance with Jiyu Ningxi, although Jiyu Ningxi was so embarrassed she wished she could find a hole to hide in. Hearing me take the initiative to bring up divorce, she thought her scheme had succeeded and also leaned out to exchange a glance with Xiaohuaiji. Even Shanshan couldn't help but jump up. Divorce? I don't want this bad mom anymore. Xiaohuaiji, feeling emboldened, pointed at my nose and shouted, you have to remember, it was you who brought up the divorce. It has nothing to do with me. Yes, it was me who brought it up. I hid my smirk and informed Xiaohuaiji. Then you can just wait to sign the divorce papers. After saying that, I packed a simple bag and left home. As for the neighbors, they were still angrily blocking the door, condemning the adulterous couple on my behalf. Xiaohuaiji thought his scheme had succeeded and exchanged insults with the neighbors for a while before driving them all away. After the incident of catching them in the act, Xiaohuaiji and Jiyu Ningxi's reputations were completely ruined. I knew they originally planned to drive me away, sell the house, and take Shanshan to live somewhere no one knew them. But I won't let them have their way. That very night, I compiled all the evidence of Xiaohuaiji's infidelity and, with the help of a lawyer, drafted the divorce papers. The next day, I arranged to meet Xiaohuaiji at the law firm. When Xiaohuaiji arrived, he still looked impatient. Can't we just go straight to the procedures? Why make it so complicated? He probably thought I was still the same person from the previous life, willing to sacrifice everything just to cling to him and our daughter, but when he opened the divorce agreement, he froze on the spot. Song Shuyi, are you crazy? How dare you make me leave with nothing? I, Nori, smiled and had the lawyer turn on the projection screen. Instantly, the scene of Xie Huaiji and Jiyu Ningxi hugging intimately at home appeared before Xie Huaiji's eyes. Seeing Xie Huaiji so shocked that his jaw dropped, I kindly reminded him, also, those things you and Jiyu Ningxi secretly plotted, do you need me to bring them up to refresh your memory? I tapped the table, pointing at the clauses in the divorce agreement that demanded the division of all assets. If you refuse to sign the divorce agreement, we will proceed with a court lawsuit. At that time, I will submit all this evidence of infidelity to the court. I believe the court will definitely make a fair judgment. Xie Huaiji snapped back to reality and roared at me through gritted teeth. Song Shuyi, how dare you play the fool to deceive me? What, are you and Jiyu Ningxi allowed to scheme against me, but I'm not allowed to scheme against you, with all the evidence in hand. I am no longer afraid of Xie Huaiji. At this point, I am no longer afraid of leaving Xie Huaiji, even though this man was the one I pursued with all my heart, and even though I devoted my entire youth to him, but having faced death once, I understand the importance of cutting losses in time even more. I sat calmly in the chair, looking completely at ease. Don't forget, I have an entire neighborhood of residents as my witnesses. They all support the idea of making you leave with nothing. When the time comes, they'll take turns testifying in court, describing how harshly you've treated me all along. Who knows, the judge might even order you to compensate me for emotional damages. I may not have a high level of education, but I'm not stupid. Back in the day, even after getting married and having children, I still found time to secretly pursue an adult undergraduate degree. At that time, I just wanted to be more worthy of Xie Huaiji. But I never expected that the legal knowledge I gained in my past life would be used against myself in this life. Xie Huaiji, once this goes to court, not only will you lose your money, but you and Jiyu Ningxi will also be publicly shamed. Xie Huaiji didn't expect me to be so ruthless. Catching him completely off guard, he was stunned for a long time, then waved his fist threateningly at me. You're just a girl from a small town with a junior college degree. How did you suddenly become so shrewd? Tell me honestly, have you been seeing other men behind my back? Did another man teach you to do this? He was so furious that his eyes turned red, pointing at the lawyer I hired like a mad dog. Is this the man? Is he your lover? I won't let either of you get away with this. The lawyer slammed the table and sternly rebuked Xie Huaiji. Sir, please watch your language, otherwise, I will sue you for defamation. Xie Huaiji protested indignantly. Sue me then, I have a Ph.D. I'm well-read and experienced, I can defend myself in court without a lawyer. He pointed at my nose, his contempt for me unmistakable. I never expected that while you couldn't excel in your studies, you're quite skilled at backstabbing. I really underestimated you, you junior college girl. However, with your character and intelligence, you'll only ever be someone's servant for life. Besides me, no other highly educated man would want you. You better think twice. Without me, you'll only be able to find those vocational school graduates who deliver packages or takeout. Seeing Xie Huaiji's arrogant demeanor, I was completely infuriated. I slammed the table and stood up. Xie Huaiji, have all the books you've read gone to the dogs? What else can you do besides looking down on others? What's wrong with vocational school? What's wrong with community college? Aren't we all working diligently, doing our best to contribute to society? As long as one doesn't break the law or act against morality, what does it matter if they've never been educated? I used clear logic to leave Xie Huaiji speechless. At least we're not like you. Despite having a Ph.D., you've forgotten all sense of propriety and shame, even going so far as to cheat in front of your own child. After shouting, I sneered coldly. Oh, I forgot. This child is yours and Jiyu Ningxi's, so naturally you're not afraid of scaring the child. The divorce agreement hadn't even mentioned the fact that they used me to have a child. Hearing me say this, Xie Huaiji, who had been about to retort, instantly looked horrified. He couldn't immediately grasp that I had also been reborn, and instead stammered in a rush to deny it. You can't just say things like that. Shanshan clearly came from your womb. How could she possibly be my daughter with Jiyu Ningxi? Song Shuyi, if you keep spouting nonsense, I'll sue you for slander. He even stepped forward and grabbed the lawyer. How much do you charge for a lawsuit? I want to sue this woman for slandering and defaming me. Seeing Xie Huaiji's expression, I laughed out loud. Xie Huaiji, aren't you a PhD? Don't you know that a paternity test would reveal the truth? And you call yourself a high and mighty PhD student. How could you forget something so basic and still try to argue your way out of it? I touch my own belly, taking the chance to vent all the grievances I've carried from my past life to this one. Because of giving birth to that daughter, my belly is covered in ugly stretch marks. During my pregnancy, I suffered from morning sickness and vomiting, and even after giving birth, I still have issues with urinary incontinence. You never cared about any of it. Perhaps while I was pregnant, you were holding Jiyu Ningxi, gloating over how you managed to deceive a fool like me into bearing your child. Bah. As I spoke, my eyes welled up with tears again. Yet, I am still very happy. I am grateful that heaven has given me another chance, allowing me in this life to seek justice for myself. Even if Shanshan doesn't share my blood, she is the child I risked my life to give birth to and raised with my own hands. Yet she inherited the selfish genes from you and Jiyu Ningxi, never remembering my kindness, always siding with Jiyu Ningxi. I once thought, if only Shanshan had shown a little more love for me. If she had been grateful to me, perhaps I would have spared them for her sake, not taking things to the extreme. But now I know, whether this father and daughter live or die, it no longer has anything to do with me. Seeing me make such a well-reasoned accusation, Xie Huaiji finally came to his senses. Song Shuyi, you couldn't have been reborn like me, could you? I admitted frankly. Xie Huaiji, it's good that you know, in this life, I will definitely make you pay for the bad things you've done. I threw the divorce papers in Xie Huaiji's face. Since you refuse to sign and still try to argue, let's meet in court. Taking advantage of Xie Huaiji's stunned reaction, I immediately took out my phone and posted the evidence of infidelity I had gathered earlier, along with the heartfelt essay I had written, online. Using the wife's womb to bear a child for the mistress. Such a shocking incident instantly topped the trending charts. Netizens expressed, "This despicable couple is truly wicked, even resorting to such a sinister trick as using someone's womb. This child is also an ingrate, not worthy of pity." Some people also questioned the authenticity of the matter, saying it was too bizarre and impossible to happen in reality. Fortunately, I was well prepared. To ensure Xie Huaiji faces public judgment, I started a live stream, brought along Shanshan's hair and the hair Jiyu Ningxi left at my place, and went straight to the paternity testing center, where I paid the high price for an urgent report. The moment Jiyu Ningxi moved in, I had already planned to obtain something from her for a paternity test later. In the live stream, those who supported me and those who questioned me were arguing fiercely. Jiyu Ningxi has been keeping a low profile since the incident began, yet her address and information were still dug up by netizens. At the moment the paternity test results came out, it was confirmed that Jiyu Ningxi and Shanshan are indeed biological mother and daughter. I broke down in tears in front of the camera. I endured all the immense physical damage and risks of childbirth, fought through death to bring my child into this world, and then painstakingly raised her. But not only is she ungrateful, she also constantly hits, scolds, and looks down on me, with her only desire being to reunite with her biological mother. This aligns with some of the videos I previously released. Netizens instantly exploded. I never thought such a terrifying story could actually exist in the world. That despicable couple and their ungrateful daughter are truly ruthless. Can they be sent to jail? Legal experts also came forward to comment, they deceived me in this way. And implanting the fertilized egg into my body without my knowledge may indeed involve a violation of the law. The situation is getting out of hand. Jiyu Ningxi could no longer sit still. She immediately went live to kneel and apologized to me, while also saying, "I really had no idea that Xie Huaiji stole my eggs and used your womb to have a child. It was Xie Huaiji who was infatuated with me all along. After I rejected him, he resorted to such despicable means to create a child between us. Son, I don't know anything, I'm a victim too." Regarding Jiyu Ningxi's act of self-preservation by turning hostile, Xie Huaiji had grievances he couldn't voice. On the day of the trial, Shanshan was crying and fussing, wanting to find her mother. "Why doesn't Ningxi mom want me anymore? I want Ningxi mom. I want my mom." Xie Huaiji irritably pushed her to the ground. "Don't mention that woman. Shanshan has lost a lot of weight. and her hair has turned dry and yellowish. Seeing that her crying and fussing had no effect, she ran toward me, sobbing even louder. "Mom, I'm hungry. Can you cook something for me? Dad doesn't know how to take care of me at all. Aunt Ningxi is gone too. I want to go home with you." I pushed her away with a cold expression. "I'm not your mother. You should go find your biological mother." Shanshan was used to my unconditional affection and tolerance. Seeing that I truly refused to accept her anymore, she sat on the ground, wailing loudly. As for me, I walked into the courtroom without looking back. Xie Huaiji, in an attempt to preserve some of his assets, also hired a lawyer at a high price. In court, he argued vehemently, determined to smear my name with all sorts of accusations. No matter how glib his tongue, he was powerless to turn the tide. Faced with irrefutable evidence, he had no choice but to reluctantly accept the outcome of leaving with nothing. After leaving the courtroom, he was immediately taken away by the police, who said they needed his cooperation in the investigation of the fertilized egg transplant. Due to the severe negative impact of this incident, not only him, but even the private hospital that performed the surgery for him has been suspended for rectification and is under investigation. And although I am the victim, I still bravely accepted the media interview. In front of the camera, I encouraged all the unfortunate girls and their families, do not be afraid. You must first learn to protect your rights, love yourself well, and only then can you reap a happy life. After obtaining all the assets, although I am reluctant to part with the neighbors who were good to me, I still quickly sold the house and other fixed assets, taking the money to start a new life in another city. On the very day I bought my new house, a message came from my former neighbor. "Did you know, Xie Huaiji and that vixen had a huge fight, and in the end, the vixen accidentally pushed your shameless ex-husband down the stairs." Xie Huaiji landed flat on his back and was instantly left severely paralyzed. He lay in bed, with no one coming to visit him. Jiyu Ningxi was arrested. Shanshan, who no one wanted, was sent to a welfare home. Seeing that they all got the endings they deserved, I have confidently enrolled in the adult self-study examination courses. In this lifetime, I will dedicate all my time and energy to myself, living a quiet and happy life. That's all for today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions, feel free to leave a comment below. See you in the next video.